This conference took place on September 28, 2019 in Voronezh between Irina Podzorova, Maxim Rusan, and invited listeners. Irina Podzorova, Contactees with Extraterrestrial Civilizations, Medium, Channeler, Psychic. Maxim Rusan is the head of the Cassiopeia Project. Theme of the conference, Who Created Man? History of our civilization and planet Earth. Terms, names of planets, etc. Sound in Daraal language, with the representative of which Irina communicates.
I welcome everyone. We are starting our conference. My name is Maxim Rusan. I am a lawyer and economist by education, and I am finishing my studies at the Institute of Practical Psychology and Business Psychology. Once upon a time, I, like many others, lived an absolutely simple earthly life and did not even understand how everything in this world is organized. One day I was lucky enough to meet a man who gave me the opportunity to personally understand and realize what is going on around me, who I am, what I came here for, what religion is, what God is, who created us, and many other things. Each of us here always has an inner request to understand what is going on. So I would like to introduce Irina Podzorova, who is a contactee with extraterrestrial civilizations, and I think we can welcome her.
I welcome everyone who has come and thank you for your presence. Until the age of 13, I too lived the ordinary life of a rural teenage girl. But when I turned 13, I met representatives of an alien civilization who came into contact with me. From that time until today, I have been in contact with them. First, it was a representative of the planet Daraal. His name is Kirchiton. Then, it happened a year ago, I met a representative of the planet Esler, Midgas Kaus. My fate led me to refuse contact for a long time due to personal reasons, as I wanted to live an ordinary life as an Earth woman. And then, a year ago, I came back to contacts just to understand it all finally, and to find out what it is. And then a year ago, I went back to contacts. I went to the ufologists and asked them to help me figure it out. They began to ask me different questions to understand the situation. And it turned out that in April of this year, we met Maxim in a completely unusual way.
Yes, that's a very interesting story. I needed a cameraman once, and I found an operator, and it was a former employee of the Ministry of Internal Affairs. They recommended him to me, said that he could shoot video and edit it. One day he comes to me and says, "Max, I have such an interesting situation. I got a call from TVC. I'm going to Voronezh to shoot one crazy woman who communicates with aliens." I had a big request for this since childhood. I read a lot of literature. I started to get seriously interested in esotericism about 5 years ago because cataclysms began to happen in my life, which we can talk about later. But the point is that I was completely zeroed out to the point where I was left alone. That is, except for me, and that God in my head, there was no one left. Well, my mom's around. So to my cameraman I said, "You have to believe that this is there to ask her good questions, to get good material for the TVC footage." He leaves, and the next day he comes in with these round eyes. I ask, "What happened?" He replies, "Max, I don't understand, but I think it's true." We started to watch this video. Irina tells very good and interesting stories. She is quite open. She has no higher education, no possibility to read encyclopedias and everything else. But on the video, she starts to talk about different energy structures, tells about her contacts with Kirchiton, about the device of flying saucers, etc. I'm watching it and I'm thinking, look, wow, he went to shoot a crazy woman. I said to the operator, "Let's do this. I'll give you money now. You go to her again in Voronezh and ask her the questions I write. Questions to make me understand. Really a person is crazy, or really she has something real, and she feels something." I wrote 9 questions on all areas. Attachment to a religious egregore, understanding of the solar system, what is the energy structure, entities, etc. That is the list of questions she was supposed to answer, and I was supposed to believe her. But as soon as I gave him a piece of paper with the questions, he gets a call from TVC asking him to finish the video material. This was really great for me. You also get a free ride. He comes, and I was having a session at the Institute of Practical Psychology and Business Psychology. We have evening 23 hours. He throws everything on Yandex Disk. I live in a room with my friend, who also studies at this institute, and I see her video with answers to my questions. In the video, Irina says, "Maxim, greetings to you from Kirchiton." I thought, well, that's it. I'm in trouble. Some Kyrgyzstan sends me greetings. Then Irina says, I can answer 6 questions myself because I am in contact with you all the time, and we talked about it with Kyrgyzstan. Irina doesn't just answer the 6 questions for me. She explains my own questions in a structured way. 3 of the questions were from an area that she couldn't know for sure. She says that in order to answer them, I must enter into mental contact with Kyrgyzstan. She's on camera openly making mental contact. The degree of purity of the information she transmits can be seen by her direct openness and absence of noise in the head, which we all have, and which makes it difficult for a person to see energy structures and to get in touch with his higher self. I went to Irina personally with the operator. After communication, we were about to leave, but then Midgaskaus came into contact with her. When Irina comes into contact, her energy structure changes, and there is a feeling that she is under chemical preparations, because at the energetic chemical level, the composition of her blood changes. Certain hormones are released. Now she is more or less balanced, because the beings with whom she communicates, we ask them to balance her constantly. Now here sit exactly those people who need this information and need this structure. A lot of people did not come. I think now there is a third of those who called and wanted to come. It was the same at the last conference. Either they don't bring it, they don't bring it. Do you have those pamphlets that say, Alien Representatives, Representatives of the Interstellar Alliance? Those who deal with civilizations like our Earth don't know all the answers to the questions. It says something about who a particular representative of the Interstellar Union is by profession. It will be possible to specifically ask questions about what you are interested in. Irina, who is here now in the astral body so that you can ask questions.
Here are Ram Tian from planet Burkhad, Midgaskaus from planet Essler, Silmoni Gitori from planet Gichor, and Lishioni from planet Shimor. The others have not been matched yet. They will be later.
Before we begin, please tell us how our galaxy is organized. Who created us, and for what purpose? For those people who are not yet aware of what we have already learned.
About 5 million years ago, our planet was discovered by astronauts from a planet called Tumasaut. It is 1,050 light-years away in the constellation of Orion. When they discovered it, there was already biological life here. Plants, animals, mammals, among which the closest to us were primates, similar to modern chimpanzees, but taller and with a different body structure. In the first time, representatives of Tumasaut allowed natural evolution to take place on Earth, so that from these forms of primates by natural selection developed intelligent beings, but for 2 million years it did not happen, unfortunately. 3 million years ago, specialists from Tumasaut began an experiment, the purpose of which was to create a hybrid of terrestrial primates, combining their genetic information with their own. To help in this experiment, they attracted 2 more civilizations, representatives of planet Burkhad from Cygnus constellation and representatives of planet Selbet from Hound Dog constellation as biologists. These 3 civilizations participated in the creation of our species. This happened 3 million years ago. By this time in our galaxy, there was already formed an organization uniting all of them, which is called Interstellar Union. It currently includes 116 civilizations out of the 727 known intelligent civilizations of the humanoid type living in our Milky Way galaxy. All civilizations with which I am in contact are also members of the Interstellar Union. I am in contact with representatives of the planet Daraal and the planet Essler. They are not our creators, but they are also members of the Interstellar Union. Now here at the conference is a representative of our creators, Ram Tian from planet Burkhad, the capital of the Interstellar Union, located in the Cygnus constellation 670 light-years from Earth. 3 million years ago, they began experimenting, injecting genetic material in different percentages into the nuclei of primate cells, and see what kind of creature would be born. They needed a creature whose nervous system would be able to fuse with an intelligent spirit. Eventually, 3 million years ago, the first man was born from an ape. As a result, the percentage of human genes includes 45% primate genes, 35% Burkhadians genes, 15% Tumasautians genes, 5% Selbetians genes. The inhabitants of the planet Tumasaut look like our people of European type, but 5 to 8 meters tall. I've been to Tumasaut,
As I already know, the entrances to the pyramids were created for Tumasutians. Once Earthlings were together with alien civilizations, and together tried to live and develop. Tumasutians are 5 to 8 meters tall. They are giants. That is why nobody can understand how pyramids and other architectural constructions are built, with the help of what technologies. They don't tell us all this. The Tumasutians are part of the Interstellar Union and have high technology in terms of construction, race development, genetic technology, and much more.
Representatives of planet Burkhud also look like us, i.e. they're warm-blooded anthropomorphic type. How do they differ from us? They are from 2 to 2.8 meters tall, with white skin, more often blue eyes, and light hair.
This is what we call in history the Aryan race. This is what Hitler was going for, dreaming of leaving only the Aryan race. His goal is not completely clear. Later in my contacts, I will ask about Hitler's true goal. What did he want to do?
Representatives of the planet Selbet, one of the reptilians' planets, are humanoids, but of reptilian type. They're cold-blooded, egg-laying, similar to our reptiles. They're intelligent, they walk on 2 legs. They are 2 meters tall, look like our lizards, triangular face, covered with scales, 4 webbed fingers. When the discoverers from the Interstellar Union first discovered the planet Earth, they were very interested in it because of the amount of diversity of life on it, making it one of the unique planets in our galaxy. Few places have such diversity. For this reason, they wanted the resulting hybrid to have their genes. They believed that the more of their genes, the more of their energy would be contained in the creature. They were interested in us carrying their energy dynamics as well. And so the first creature was created.
Reptilians in our religious egregore are the very serpent of temptation that tempted Eve for some reason. People wonder why we have existed for 3 million years, but consciously, only for the last 2,000 years, and according to chronicles, about 12,000 years.
When the first people were created, they were created not 2, but 18 people, 9 men and 9 women. They were not immediately adults, but first a fetus, then a child. They had a celebration when the intelligent spirit was finally embodied in this hybrid. All representatives of the Interstellar Union do not consider the material body as the main thing in man. They consider it only a means, a reflection, a carrier, an instrument of the reasonable spirit. Spirit was born by our Father God before the creation of the material world. Now we are all here now, intelligent spirits incarnate, and those in astral bodies are also intelligent spirits incarnate. They believe that now an intelligent spirit incarnated in the hybrid because an intelligent spirit cannot incarnate in a being whose nervous system is not adapted for thinking activity. In the language of Daraal, the intelligent spirit is called limus. The soul of an animal is called aromes. Insects have a group soul. The soul of an animal will not be able to incarnate into a human and vice versa due to the different types of connecting links of their life force to their physical body. After the creation of intelligent hybrids, limus from our system began to incarnate into them. Eventually, a dispute broke out between the reptilians of Selbet and the other 2 races, Tumasutians and Burkhadians. The reason for the dispute was the Selbetians' claim that there were already more anthropomorphic races in the galaxy. Earth was a unique place. It was home to creatures we call dinosaurs, that is, the reptiloid type. The 5% reptilians genes, not 15, was because the Tumasutians and Burkhadians believed that exceeding 5% would introduce a disorder in the development of our bodies because each gene is responsible for a certain protein, etc. The Selbetians said, well, if you have created anthropomorphs, and since our genes in them are only 5%, then, since we helped you in this, help us to create a race of intelligent reptilians, but by combining our genetic information with those forms of reptilians that are already on this planet. To put it simply, intelligent dinosaurs. Tumasutians and Burkhadians thought that such a difference of races on one planet, which will be further formed, forming nations, religions, is impossible. They said that in such a young civilization, even a difference in skin color, height, can already sow discord between peoples. And if reptilians differ so much from anthropomorphs, it will just be an unnecessary reason for different wars. Such a young civilization is not yet ready for such a level of dealing with its xenophobia, so that two types of races can live in peace on the same planet. Such a distinction is only possible in an interstellar union, where all wars must cease on the planet before going into space, and the group consciousness was willing to accept the existence of other races and recognize the right for them to exist. Young civilizations, which had not yet passed their evolutionary path of social development, were not yet ready for such a level of consciousness. Therefore, it was not worth provoking wars and creating reptilians unnecessarily. The Celebesians have a psychology of their own, and they have conspired among themselves that if they are not allowed to have representatives, if they are not allowed to have their own on this unique planet, they will destroy the hybrids that are created. According to Raum Tian, this decision was made not by the Selbet leadership on their planet, but by their humanoids who were on Earth at the time, 3 million years ago, without informing their government. When the scientist representative of Selbet made the decision to destroy Earth's already intelligent hybrids, they couldn't just take them and kill them, or they would have been blamed immediately. They had to make it look like an accident. And then there was that story, which is described in figurative but precise language in the 3rd chapter of the book of Genesis in the Old Testament, where it is about the temptation of Adam and Eve and eating the forbidden fruit. You are probably all familiar with this story. This story appeared in the Bible for a reason. It was written down by Moses. He was a contact with the planet Tumasot in ancient Mesopotamia. The representatives of Tumasot spoke to him in his language at the level of his picture of the world, his idea of it. That is, when they made contact with him, they did not introduce themselves to him as aliens, inhabitants of stars, etc. They presented themselves to him as gods to avoid conflict with his picture of the world. There was no science about other planets back then. People looked up into the sky and saw stars as luminous dots with no idea what they were. Therefore, all the galactic representatives who came out to contact ancient humans to be understood did not contradict that ancient contactor's world picture back then. When the Tumasotians made contact with Moses, he told him, in the figurative form of myth, what was happening in those ancient times. He represented to him the representatives of Selbet who had committed the crime by the symbol of the serpent tempter. Why the serpent? Because in this symbol he encoded the fact that it was a representative of a reptiloid civilization and not some other. This text, which Moses wrote down later, was not just given for nothing, it was given for the next generations as a true story, but in an allegorical form, so that it could be deciphered later on. At the time of human creation, the Earth had a different climate. It was slightly closer to the sun and had only one continent. The division into continents came later, after the war.
This is what we call Hyperborea and Atlantis.
These were parts of that single continent, or city. A voice from the audience: the name of the continent is Pangaea. This is the modern name of that single continent. On the place where the Mediterranean Sea is now, it did not exist then, it appeared after the war, 12,000 years ago. Closer to today's Turkey, there was a base for the creation of man, what we call now Eden. There was not just a scientific base, but also what we call a testing ground for training our forebears to pass the social path of development. They wanted to create us and let us go through all difficulties by ourselves to give us independence. They were interested in further communication with full-fledged employees, i.e., representatives of a civilization which had passed all the stages they had passed earlier. In this Garden of Eden, a testing ground for teaching children was created, because humans were created at the fetal level, and by that time they were already children. They were also taught a language, that is, the simplified Tumasoteric language without any complex terms in its simplest form. From it, later on, Hebrew emerged, which in turn also underwent changes. Children perceived their creators as their parents. They had no such concepts as gods.
Were they born?
Yes, they were born from Earth female primates, as we call them, by genetic modification or artificial insemination. Our creators could see the DNA magnified. They had devices that could shape the chains of genes, add or remove unnecessary. We're just starting to do that now. It is possible to make not only plant hybrids, but also living beings.
Those people whom we know as great, Christ, Krishna, are just a hybrid of an Earth woman and genetics of that civilization, which wanted to convey its idea of the world and the universe. What was it even done for? To be able to directly contact with your daughter or son, because their energy structure allowed to receive information from those civilizations. If we take human beings, we are very closed, not sensitive. Only recently we have started to understand more. More information appears, more opportunities to realize who we are, why we exist. And in principle, this whole conference is to give a lot of information so that a person would realize who he is and what he is for.
On this base, there were not only terrestrial plants, but also plants from other planets, necessary and desirable for the development and maintenance of existence of our creators. One of these plants is called chorul. This is in the Tumasot language. The fruits of this tree are indeed very desirable for providing mental, physical activity for the members of Tumasot. But for a human being with a different genetic set and a different body structure, the fruit of this tree was poisonous. That is, after eating the fruit of this tree from several hours to a day, in the absence of assistance, there was a physical death from poisoning. Knowing this, the Selbitians decided to destroy people, presenting it as if there had been an accident. That is, that the people themselves came up. Eat the fruit, and when they are found, the Selbitians will say that the people ate it out of curiosity. When children grew up, they were explained to them the harm of this fruit, and that it should not be eaten. The children idolized their parents and saw them flying ships. The Tumasutans and Berkadians could not imagine that children growing up could disobey them.
These are the apples described in the Bible. The Selbitians deceived people, and people ate those apples, and then they had to be rescued.
The description says that Adam and Eve hid after tasting the fruit, but they were actually unconscious and could not respond. They were found and helped in time. When asked, "Why did you do this?" they did not hide and said that it was all set up by the Selbitians, revealing the truth in the story. This was reported to Selbet, and the perpetrators were sent to their home planet with further isolation as punishment for attempted murder. Those people who were rescued decided to be sent from this base to an independent life on Earth. They were settled on the Earth for independent development, showing them how to build dwellings, teaching them how to sow bread, grow fruits, vegetables, etc., in accordance with the then climate and human metabolism, different from the present time. In those times, humans had no need for animal food, due to the different climate, Earth's energy, magnetic fields, metabolism. Our bodies were sustained by such food. Why did they decide to send humans out? Because if Earthlings do not trust the creators, someone else will set them up for something, and it may come to the point that Earthlings will take up arms and go against their own creators. Thus, humanity evolved for many thousands of years, multiplying, filling the Earth as they were instructed by their creators. In addition, the aliens were engaged in forming conditions on 2 other planets for favorable living on them, people who were suitable for this purpose. These were Venus and Mars. At that time, the conditions on these planets were different. Venus had a different atmosphere than it does now, with carbon dioxide, sulfuric acid, and a greenhouse effect. Venus then was located a little farther from the sun and had a favorable climate for the existence of liquid water and vegetation, etc. On Mars, due to the fact that there was an insufficient level of oxygen, the aliens had to plant vegetation, creating an atmosphere favorable for human life. And everything ended up that about 200,000 years ago, about 20,000 people were settled on Venus and Mars. It was done for that, in conditions of formation of various nationalities, there are more opportunities for social evolution with the subsequent entry of mankind into the interstellar union, for joint cooperation in the discovery of new planets, etc. For many thousands of years it was like this. It was the very golden age mentioned in the ancient scriptures. There were no wars, people had superpowers because they were in open contact with all sorts of aliens and subtle materializations. There was no winter on Earth. There were large trees, fertile land. Everything grew quickly. There was a different magnetic field, a different composition of the Earth. On the Earth formed their own cities, where people lived in harmony with nature. The aliens did not insist that we develop our technology. They looked at how the social evolution would go, and it could go in different ways, either in the technical direction or in merging with nature. For thousands of years, the Earthlings chose the second way. They did not build technology because they had warmth, enough food, no enemies among predatory animals, and they lived in harmony with nature and with the plasmoid, i.e. subtle material worlds existing on Earth.
Irina, please explain for people what are ethereal beings and what plasmoids are.
We are now in dense material bodies. They consist of substances. This matter has density. Its energies have formed what we call atoms. There is also what we call subtle matter. This is the material world, not spiritual world. We call it electromagnetism in our language. These energies do not have a carrier substance. We can say radio waves or electromagnetic fields. The body of an intelligent being can also consist of these fields. For example, a ball lightning is a plasmoid manifested for our sight, being at such level of vibrations, which is already in the spectrum of frequencies visible to us. Plasmoids incarnate in those bodies that have no substance, just energy. To put it simply, it is an intelligent ray of light.
There are dense material civilizations, humanoid, insectoid, reptiloid, and there are subtle material world civilizations, plasmoid worlds. There are tens of times more of them than dense material ones, so I asked Irina to explain for understanding what they are.
Plasmoids in our religion and culture are usually called spirits of nature, of spirits, and spirits of the elements, forests, fields, rivers. Mermaids, house spirits, fire spirits are different types of plasmoid civilizations. They exist not only on Earth, but also in space, in the stars, in the sun.
Part of plasmoid civilizations formed religions, which we have on Earth, at the expense of contactors. Vedic cultures, for example, do not bring anything bad. They just carry their vision and idea of where to develop.
12,000 years ago, there was a catastrophe, which is usually called a global war in the solar system. The perpetrators of this event were again the Selbet race. This is the same race whose representatives at that long ago time forced humans to eat the forbidden fruit on Earth's base, Eden. On Selbet, a political party came to power that was strongly opposed to the representatives of Burkhad, one of our creators. Earth was considered a colony of Burkhad at the time. The war started far away in the galaxy, and after a few years, Selbet representatives attacked the solar system and those colonies that existed in the solar system: Earth, Venus, and Mars. They made a surprise attack on the bases of the Burkhadians, the main one being on a planet called Phaethon. The well-known asteroid belt, the debris of Phaethon, located in the orbit between Mars and Jupiter, is the consequences of this attack. The debris of that planet and the Jupiter belt is also its debris. There were no outposts in the solar system. No one was expecting an attack. Upon reaching the solar system, the Selbet representatives split into several formations of warships, the first of which headed for Mars, another for Earth, and a third for Venus. They destroyed Mars first. The Selbetians possessed weapons capable of blowing away the atmosphere or turning the oceans into vapor. Burkhadians and Tumasutians, who were on their ships in the solar system, naturally stood up for humanity, and when Selbetians used chemical weapons against people on Venus, Burkhadians, having landed their ship, managed to evacuate almost all people to another planet, which is called Disaru, in the constellation Hercules. And now on that planet, and now live descendants of those people. Outwardly, they do not differ from us, people of the Earth. The planet Disaru is also a member of the Interstellar Union, and they have their contactees on Earth. If we give them clothes and teach them the language, we will not distinguish them.
All names are given in Daraal language, as Irina is in contact with this humanoid. In other languages, planets may be called differently, but we can clearly tell where exactly they are. Our astronomers call such planets, for example, G5021.
Besides the descendants of Earthlings, plasmoid civilizations also live on Venus. On any planet that has a powerful atmosphere with thunderstorms, lightning, and other phenomena, there are many plasmoids. In the Earth's atmosphere, we call them sylphids, the spirits of the air. They look like bluish balls when viewed from astral space. The planet Mars had it much worse. Its inhabitants were almost all dead. It was inhabited by both humans and Tumasaut, who had a city there. As a result of the war, Mars was left without water or atmosphere. There are remains of that civilization on Mars even now. Against the background of low oxygen and oxidation, the skeletons of its inhabitants can be found there even now. The Celebesians fired several energy-gravity bombs at Earth from the distance of Mars's orbit beyond the ecliptic plane, the circle the Earth travels around the Sun through the constellations. The bombing caused the continent to splinter and volcanoes to erupt, and tsunamis were generated. This is called the Flood. We can see the consequences of these blows now by looking at a map of the Earth, because before the Flood, the Earth had a single continent. As a result of these weapons, the Earth began to fly further away from the Sun, after which snowy winters appeared on Earth and moved towards the planet that is now called the Moon. Before this war, the Moon did not exist as a satellite of Earth. It was a planet located between Mars and Earth, with a large alien base. A collision would have been inevitable with another asteroid belt, if not for the intervention of the Berkadians with the gravitational fields of their 17 ships, who stopped this approach, which had already grown to 4 times the size of the Moon. After the arrival of the rest of their ships, they were able to place the Moon in the orbit it is in now. Because of the artificial intervention, the Moon turned always one side toward the Earth. As the Moon got closer, water began to overflow, coastal areas sank, and this is called the World Flood. Many people on the Earth died from volcanic eruptions, from poisonous gases coming out of the Earth, from earthquakes, from floods. About 3,000 people were taken to Mars, which the Celebesians attacked a little later, from which people were taken already to the Moon base under a glass dome. There they stayed until the cataclysms on Earth ended. Volcanic eruptions, movement of continents, increased radiation, and it became habitable again.
The end of the first part of the conference. The continuation follows.